Hello, and welcome to this video from Keltie, which is looking at patent activity in the quantum technology area. My name is Mark Richardson. I am a European and UK patent attorney in Keltie's IT, telecoms and electronics team, which has a particular interest in emerging technologies such as machine learning, the Internet of Things, 5G, and also quantum technology. My practice covers from startups and spin-out companies through to multinational clients. I've worked with technology incubators and accelerators to provide IP advice and also to provide training videos and information such as this. Now, this video is going to be in two parts. The first section of the video will be a very brief recap of what intellectual property is, some aspects of the patent system that might be relevant to companies that are operating in the quantum technology space. But essentially speaking, this will be a sort of run through of things you may have seen before. So if you are familiar with patents, you are familiar with intellectual property, then down the bottom of the screen will be the time code to jump to if you want to sort of look at the analysis of activity in the quantum technology area. So, if you're still with me, what we're going to look at is a variety of things to do with intellectual property, but at a very high level, quick brief run through. So there are two basic types of intellectual property: IP rights that require registration and IP rights that don't. In the category of IP rights that require registration, we have patents, registered designs, registered trademarks, and domain names. Now, patents will cover technical inventions. This could be a gadget, it could be a device, it could be a method of manufacture or operating something. Registered designs will protect the shape and visual appearance of an article. Pretty much what you see is what you get. And registered trademarks relate to branding. Domain names may, of course, include a registered trademark. In the area of IP rights that do not require registration, we have copyright and an unregistered form of design right, common law trademarks, and confidential information and know-how. Copyright will cover things like artistic creations, artwork, music, sculptures, but also literary works. And within the concept of literary works, there is computer program code. Common law trademarks will be badges of origin that aren't registered as such, but are used in that manner. And so they're used as a trademark, but they haven't been registered. You can still have a certain level of rights in those types of marks. Confidential information and know-how should be hopefully self-explanatory. The eagle-eared among you may have sort of determined that there's also a bit of an overlap here potentially between certain types of these rights. So I mentioned computer program code being protected by copyright, but the functionality of computer program code may also be protectable via the patent system, as we'll discuss in a little bit more detail in a minute. So looking a bit more at the patent side of things, some introduction to some elements of the requirements for an invention to be regarded as patentable. So the first on the list is novelty, or is it new? This is an assessment that's done against the state of prior disclosures, which is very important to appreciate. It includes your own disclosures. So if you've made a self-published something on your website or at a conference prior to filing a patent application, that could potentially stop you from getting a patent application to an invention. So it's very important that you keep things confidential until you've either filed a patent application or at least made an assessment that you're not going to proceed with a patent application for that particular invention. So novelty is an assessment against, as I said, everything that's been published up to the date of your application being filed. If your invention, for example, includes features A, B, and C, and somebody can find a document, the patent examiner can find a document that has a description of a system or method that has those same features A, B, and C, then you will lack novelty and won't be able to get a patent through. It may be that the patent examiner comes up with a document that has features A and B, but missing C, and that moves us from an assessment of novelty into an assessment of inventive step. Or in other words, is the invention obvious or not? This can be sometimes a little difficult to assess. but that is the second sort of requirement for an invention to be patentable. The third on this list is really relevant for just certain types of invention that fall into something that we refer to as a sort of non-technical excluded category. The Patent Act lists a number of exceptions to patentability. So methods of doing business, programs for computers, mental acts, mathematical methods are all regarded as non-technical, but they're only regarded as non-technical in the language in the patent system as such, which means that if you can apply a program for a computer in a way in which it addresses a technical problem and provides a technical solution, then you may still be able to get a patent through. So this list here sometimes results in people saying, well, you can't patent software. That's not true. It just means that you have to sort of appreciate what the software is doing, what its technical purpose is directed towards, and it's potentially just an additional consideration that you have to factor in for technology that falls into these areas that you can see here. So expanding a little bit on that. So we will often come across software inventions, computer implemented inventions, to use the language of within the patent system, or mathematical methods. So these are technically excluded from patentability in the UK and Europe, but as I said, they're only excluded as such, which means that abstract mathematical methods, for example, are excluded. But if you can, if the mathematical method or the computer program, as I said, is directed towards solving a problem in a specific technical field. So, for example, the European Patent Office has granted inventions in the field of image processing, user interfaces, machine learning, genetic algorithms. All these things will rely on computer programs or mathematical methods in some shape or form to implement the invention, but they are directed towards solving this technical problem. And so it is certainly possible to get protection for computer programs through. But it's just something that you have to bear in mind. There may be some additional sort of analysis and challenges in getting inventions in that sort of technology area through, but it's certainly nothing to be ruled out. So that, as I said, is a very, very brief snapshot of some issues that may be relevant for people operating in a range of technologies, but in this particular instance, in the quantum technology era. So that was a very, very brief snapshot of what IP is and some aspects of the patent system that are worth bearing in mind for certain technology areas. So moving on to the specifics of the quantum technology era, I've been asked to provide some indication of patent activity in the UK and Europe in the quantum technology era. The way that this has been done is I've been provided with a couple of databases, one from the Quantum Technology Innovation Network at the KTN. There is an open access tool. It's interactive, searchable, that maps existing businesses, UK technology national centres, research groups, for example. There's about 204 businesses in this landscape map. So I've had access to that list of companies. There's also a sort of an equivalent tool in the Quant Era Consortium. I'm sure somebody will tell me that I've pronounced that incorrectly. Which is also a list of companies throughout Europe as well that are operating in the sort of the auspices of the quantum technology era. So all in, there are about 300 companies in those two lists, ranging from startups through to household names, multinationals. So what I've done is I've used the Orbit patent database to analyze the patent filings of those 300 companies. So there's been a fair amount of data cleansing, I suppose, of the company names. if you come to look for patent filings and the name of a company, one thing to bear in mind is that sometimes the sort of the branding name is not the name that the intellectual property is held in. Sometimes the name change is very small. It might be the additional technology or holdings or something into the name. Sometimes a name that's completely different entirely. So I've been through the websites of the companies that are listed, and where I've been able to, these have been put into the name of what appears to be the IP holding company. The initial search that was done on that produced a fair number of results, to the extent that it wasn't really providing much of an analysis of what was going on. So what's been done on top of that, there's been some filtering by keywords. Now, this is in particular for the fact that there are a number of multinationals in this list, like the likes of Samsung and Microsoft. Their patent filings were tending to swamp the results. So the use of keywords, so for example, words like quantum, qubit, things like that have been used to try and filter down, particularly really for those large multinational companies, so that we're focusing on the specific area that we're interested in here. Now, it does mean that there are probably some edge cases in the keywords where things that aren't quantum have been included, and things that are quantum maybe haven't quite been picked up, depending on the language that's been used. But looking through the results that I've got, it looks like it's fairly accurate. The one other thing that has been done, however, is to limit how far back in time we're looking with this analysis. So back during the first lockdown last year, I attended a talk from the European Patent Office that was looking at some aspects of quantum technology, and what they'd done is they decided to look at what they'd termed the second quantum revolution. And crudely speaking, that meant that there was a cutoff in time in how far back they were looking. They flagged up a Royal Society paper from 2003 that was titled "Quantum Technology: The Second Quantum Revolution," and so I've taken the beginning of 2003 as the earliest point for this analysis, really, to start looking. So you're picking up filings that have been made in just under the last 20 years, and we will see how many filings have been made by certain companies, what sort of like the trend in filing is over time, and the different technology areas that are involved. Some of these slides are fairly information rich, so I will disappear at points during this presentation, so that the entire screen can be given over to the graphs that have been generated. So these have come directly from the Orbit database. So the first thing to look at, or the first thing that we're looking at, is the number of patent applications that have been filed over time. So we can see here, there's obviously on the far left-hand side, 2001, 2002, the search picked up a couple of, or a few filings from very early on. But really, as I said, we're focusing from 2003 onwards. So there is a rough trend upwards over time. You might notice, or you might question, why 2019, 2020 drop off towards the end. The reason for that is that patent applications don't publish immediately. They publish after 18 months. And so effectively the last 18 months, or the most recent 18 months, you can't see applications that have been filed in that period. They're currently hidden from us, and they will publish, obviously, as time moves on. But that effectively means that we can only see back to applications that were filed in the first half of 2019, effectively. Once you factor in slight lags in them appearing in patent databases, then probably you're not seeing much after June of 2019. So we're potentially only getting part of the year in 2019, and we're only getting things that have been published, a few things that have been published in 2020. So you would expect there to be a drop-off at the end. But taking 2018 as the sort of last full year of results, you can see that there is an upward trend in patent applications that have been filed in this technology area. So the next thing that we looked at was who are the key players. This is quite a busy slide. So this is companies on the left-hand vertical axis. Across the bottom, we've got the number of patent families that those companies have. So effectively, we're seeing sort of key players in the area. Now, one thing that is obvious from looking at this is that the results here are dominated really by larger players. So we've got Samsung has got 3 or 4 entries there in the top 10 or 20. We've got Microsoft and others. So it tends to obscure to a little degree what others are doing in this area. So what I've also done is I've stripped out these key players. So if we look at number 4 on the list, D-Wave Systems, there's 150 applications there. Once we take out the big players above them, D-Wave should become moved to the top. So there they are with their 150 filings or families. And we can see a bit more others underneath. Now, there are still some large companies in there. For example, BT is still in there. But the number of filings they have in this area is not swamping the rest of the results. So they've been left in. So you can see from this across the top 20 or 30 that are listed there. D-Wave Systems clearly are a large filer and key player in this area. There are quite a number of companies that have multiple filings in this area. So there is a lot of activity in this area, and it's spread around quite a bit. What we've also taken a look at is the technology areas that are being applied for by these companies. So if we go back to the complete list again, so this is including the multinationals. This is a sort of heat map showing you how many applications roughly there are in different areas. So as you move towards the red colors, that indicates more filings in that area. So you can see that the technology overview indicates that semiconductors, so the actual hardware architecture, is where there's been a lot of filings, but also in areas such as optics, computer technology. I've also seen a lot of filings in this area. If we strip out again the multinationals, you see that the heat map changes slightly. So we go back again. So the red area jumps from semiconductors now into computer technology. So this might indicate that we're seeing a bit more of the applications of being filed and protected in this area. And so inventions that fall broadly within the remit of computer technology appear to be where most of the filings are. So this is a similar type of heat map, but this time, as well as showing you the technology domain, which is across the bottom, we've also got the owners of the patent filings. So you can see roughly who's filing what and where they're filing it. So D-Wave Systems, again, as we saw, they had 150 patent families listed on the results. Those are concentrated in the computer technology area, but there's also filings in a variety of other areas such as digital communication, measurement, microstructures. But you can also see there is a general sort of clumping of filings in this list of companies to the technology areas towards the left-hand side of the axis across the bottom. So that's the computer technology, semiconductors, optics, digital communication, measurement, microstructures, basic communication technologies. So that's where most of the filings have been made. And then there are a smattering of filings in other areas. So in the biotech area, chemical engineering, audio-visual technologies, and telecommunications. So the next slide here is another way of looking at who's filed what, but this time it's showing you the age of the portfolio. So we have the same list of key players minus the large multinational companies, but we're indicating whether a patent has is still pending, whether it's granted, or whether it's dead, so it's lapsed, been abandoned, or refused. So you can see in the large part here, the dark blue color represents granted patents. There are a large number of granted patents that have been obtained by companies. All those in that list there pretty much have granted patents within their portfolio. The other thing that you can also see is there aren't a huge number of dead cases. There are a fair number of applications in progress and pending cases. But to me, this kind of indicates that the technology area is still relatively new. I would expect for technology areas that are a bit more mature, that you'd see more red colours in here, indicating that that maybe patents are sort of further along and have been dropped. We've also, for these filings, we've looked at where these filings have been made, so the geographical spread. So you can see that the bulk of filings have at least some activity in America. There are also quite a large number of filings been made in China. And then Europe is showing a reasonable amount of activity, but not to the level of the US, certainly. So this might indicate where you regard your competitors as being located. That might be one reason why you would file in the States versus Europe, let's say. It may be where components or hardware is being built. So you might protect your sort of supply chains. But there's quite a wide range of areas there. I mean, we would normally expect in the sort of technology area that I'm in, so as I said, I'm in the electronics, IT, telecoms team, the US is always the preferred, or the first point of call for protection. Europe is often popular, and then we will see filings in China, Japan, and the like. So this is reflecting a fairly predictable and standardized sort of spread of filings. It's worth pointing out, for those of you that maybe don't know that, but obviously patent applications are territorial, so you have to apply in the countries you want protection. There is no worldwide patent. There is something called a PCT application, an international patent application, which gets you, it's a sort of placeholder that you can file, placeholder application, one application you make that reserves your rights in about 150 countries around the world, but you do later have to convert it into individual national filings. It's very expensive to file in a wide range of countries, so there's always a choice as to where you file. Probably the pharma industry is where you would find companies file very widely, but in the sort of computer technology areas, it tends to be more focused, which is what this map is reflecting. And the last slide here from the analysis really is it's showing all the companies again. You can see that Samsung have reappeared. It's an indication as to where or who is which portfolios are regarded as being more relevant, I suppose, because they are being cited by other people in the field. So you can see a lot of the Samsung Electronics filings have got links out not only to other Samsung companies, but also to other companies, which indicates that they're regarded as particularly relevant filings, and they're being cited a lot. But there are also other filings to D-Wave with their portfolio appears in there. Also BT, Toshiba, ID Quantique are also flagging up as having portfolios that crop up a lot when applications are prosecuted. You find that the filings in these companies' portfolios will be relevant and will be cited. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope it's been of interest and it's been useful. So, as I said, we've looked at the companies that appear in those two lists of company names in the quantum technology area. There's obviously a large amount of patent activity. There's a spread in technology areas where things are being filed. So I think for me, the take home would be, if you're operating in the quantum technology area, if you're uncertain as to whether a patent filing is a possibility, I wouldn't discount it. There are a lot of people filing applications in this area. There are a lot of granted patents, as we saw from one of the slides. And so if you've got any concerns, any questions, my advice would be to speak to your patent attorney. Come speak to me if you haven't got a patent attorney. And we can hopefully give you a steer as to whether there is a possibility of filing a patent application. Maybe, is that the right thing to do? You might have to assess whether it matches with your commercial aims. But certainly, there is the possibility of filing patent applications in this technology area. As I said, there's a wide range of technology types that are being protected, and so anything is possible. So yeah, if you have any questions, then please feel free to contact me. I hope this video has been helpful, and thank you very much.